Hello and welcome back to the last session of day 2 of our Accelerated Jumpstart program here for planning and deploying Office 365. I have again Ajinkya with me delivering this module 6, Exchange Online Unified Messaging. And again, putting this in context, this will start out the Exchange Online track where we have tomorrow following in the first half day Exchange Online, including hybrid. And I want to start out actually with a question we have here in the queue and looking at that and have Ajinkya answer that. So the question we have here in the queue is, can unified messaging only really be used in Office 365 Suite E4? Since unified messaging requires Lync server on premises. If the answer is yes, no, or is it covered in the next session? Well, it's covered right now.
So we'll take a quick pause there on that question. I think there's a little bit more written.
Yep. Yep.
So here's where the confusion is. If you're looking at your screens right now, I have the plans open from E1 to E4. And if I scroll down, there's this little place that says Advanced Voice Hosted Voicemail Support with Auto Attendant Capabilities. And the last piece says Voice Capabilities, which is just E4. Now, if you have Lync Online, basically you don't have any integration for voicemail with an on-premises system, or for that matter, with the Exchange Online Unified Messaging itself, because you have a voicemail when you have voice, and you don't have any telephony components here at all in Lync Online. So there's no interop possible there. That's where you need to have Lync on premises or your telephone system on premises, and you can then use what is marked here under the E3 and E4 plans as hosted voicemail. So you have Lync on premises or your telephone system on premises, and we'll talk about what those requirements are, because that's what all the session for unified messaging is all about. But you have the telephone system on premise, and online is where your voicemail is going to go. I hope that helps answer the question. Will, I know that was your question, so if you can confirm that for me, or we can have more discussions on that, okay? All right, so I think we covered the entire question, so.
Yeah, that was the gist of the question. Thanks for covering that off.
Thank you. So going back to the unified messaging pieces today. So talking about unified messaging, there's a huge component that we require on-premise to actually redirect your call to the online services. So that's a bit of a demo restriction here, so I'm going to demonstrate all the skills that you require to configure it from the exam preparation perspective online, because that's what this course is about. So we're going to cover a bit of what the architecture looks like, how is the voice going to get routed from on-premises to online. We'll look at the different devices, requirements that are there, and a couple of configurations and concepts, because whenever we're talking about voice or we're talking about unified messaging, telephony concepts are very, very important. So if that's an area that you think is a little new to you, I'd suggest doing a good amount of reading and hands-on on telephony before you actually go for the exam. Right, so to start with, a bit of feature sets. So when we talk about voicemail being delivered in your mailbox, which is saying you're going to get a WMV file as a recording delivered in your email, right? That's what you're going to get. At this time, while Exchange on-premises supports speech-to-text conversion that you can enable, disable, at this time we don't support it online. It's probably going to be there in upcoming releases, but nothing right now. So that's the basic feature that's available. And with voicemail, what you can have is more the unified messaging feature in Exchange is the auto attendant. So a call lands in And let me go to the next piece to actually describe that. So a call lands in from your on-premises telephone system into your phone, starts ringing. You're not there to attend to it. It gets redirected from there and goes to the online services Exchange Unified Messaging role. So for this moment in this diagram, just ignore the different components there just to get the flow in place. So your phone call lands up in the online services, and it first will hit the auto attendant, which basically will say, hello, you've reached the voicemail of Ajinkya Pinto. He's currently unavailable. Please leave your message after the beep. Pretty standard. You can, of course, customize this to have more like, hi, I'm Ajinkya Pinto. I'm away from my desk right now. Please leave a message and I'll get back to you shortly. But that would be my custom message. So you can customize that, and you can also have other configuration sets where you're saying you're having different auto attendants or routing for a different number or different caller that could be reaching you. Again, something not to worry just right now, basically understanding how the call flow is going to work, how the call is going to hit your online Exchange Unified Messaging server, and we'll keep on drilling down into it to have that good understanding. So let me back up a bit of slides here. We're at features. So that's the main feature set that you have. What you don't have is voice dial by voice directory. So I'm not sure if you've experienced this, but let me pose this question to Stefan. Have you called up one of your customers, partners, and you've had the extension right there, but they'll ask you to dial by voice directory, dial 1, to dial extension, dial 2, and to reach the reception, dial 3. Have you experienced that, and what's it like in the next step?
Oh, it's a separate question, of course. It happens all the time. Any kind of services you call, you get those automated messages where you get a routing computer, which is quite annoying, right?
Well, annoying and useful at times, right? So
it's useful if you don't have to wait for option 9, which is the option that you want, and have to wait for 5 minutes to listen to all those options, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's one way to look at it, and another is, damn, I'm driving, right? And I can't dial. So I need to be talking to my phone most of the time, or as much as convenient. Right. So in that kind of scenario, currently we don't support voice dialing. So for users like Stefan, it's going to be a happy. So you reach the directory, you just dial your number or dial the extension, and you're there. Right. So that's the piece with voice dial, and which is not supported. I'll just repeat myself there. Right, and let me move ahead. All right, so what are the basic requirements that you need to have in place to have unified messaging in the cloud? So it remains pretty standard if you've deployed an on-premises Exchange Unified Messaging server and you've configured there. The requirements are the same. There's just going to be one additional piece that we can talk about, which actually is not an additional piece. It's called the SBC. And Stefan, do you want to talk about what SBC stands for?
SBC, the Session Border Controller. SBC, well, there are actually several SBCs that are supported and tested with Exchange Online. As an SBC, what we need for that is actually, let me punt this back to you, that question, because you can better explain that SBC.
Yeah, so like Stefan was mentioning, there are a number of SBC devices that are certified to work with Exchange Online. So what is this SBC device? And I'll pose this question to the audience today and say, so have you worked with an IP gateway that supports SIP? Well, I'm pretty sure if there's voice deployment partners in the audience, they're going to say, yeah, I know that, right? And a session body controller is nothing but a gateway device with a bit of a twist or a bit of a firmware upgrade that a lot of our partners are providing, our hardware vendors are providing. And what you want to check is in this little list of supported devices, is that device there? And probably you want to reach out to the hardware vendor, say, hey, I have this version of the gateway. Is it possible to upgrade the firmware to support or have it function as a session body controller?
Right.
Okay. So that's a little piece about SBC. So just to clear the cloud about what it is. So that's the main requirement in the whole gamut of connecting your telephone system on premises to the online system. Now, when we're talking about SBC, mainly what we're saying is you have either an analog PBX that is sitting on premises, or you have an IP PBX that is compatible with but may require an SBC device. Now, why do I say may require? IP PBXs have at times inbuilt gateway functionalities, and if there's a device there that can again be firmware upgraded to work as a session body controller, well, you're good. But there's a little bit of research that you're looking at doing in planning your unified messaging piece, understanding what the customer has and aligning it with what you require, what's tested and supported with the online services. Okay, and when you're deploying Lync, basically, if you have Lync Server and Lync Edge deployed, session body controller is not required there. So you're good if you're deploying Lync. Okay. So let's have a look. Go back to the diagram now. Connect all these little dots where we said, well, you have your little telephone network on the left extreme. You have your customer premises, which could have Lync, which could have an IPPBX or a PBX. What do you require in addition to that? Basically, a session body controller in the case where you have a IPPBX or a PBX system. Now, what is a session body controller going to help you do? One, it's going to help you secure your network because your links, your PBX, your IPPX is going to be sitting inside your network, and your session body controller is basically going to sit in, or it's going to be internet facing. The session body controller requires a public IP, of course, that needs to be pointed to it, and you require a FQDN name, so something like sbc.domain.com that you're going to have as a DNS setting in your public DNS. Okay, so that's the session body controller. Now, at our side, in our data centers, we again have session body controllers deployed. So these little brick firewall-like looking things are actually session body controllers right here. And at the back end, behind the session body controllers, you have the Exchange servers and the Exchange Unified Messaging role, which is providing you with the voicemail functionalities. All right, so I hope this is helping understand. So from the previous diagram, just trying to shed all the boxes, simplify it into just having your on-premises telephone system right here, and on the right side you have the cloud or the Exchange online system, which is unified messaging. And you have little router-like devices here, which is nothing but your SBC devices. And like we discussed, SBC is nothing but your gateway with a bit of a firmware upgrade to support this kind of public routing functionalities. Okay. Right. And for the people that are wondering where they can find a list of SBC devices, because I'm sure that question is going to come up, it's part of the resources that I'm going to share. So hold on, or you can refer to the last slide, which has more information. It has a link to the SBC devices or the telephone devices supported. Right. So take an example where you have Lync on premises, or you want to deploy Lync on premises and route the voicemail to the cloud, right? So like we always talk about unified communication. So this is going to take you from just having a Lync system sitting on premises that's going to provide you with IM presence and telephony services, and it's going to connect you with your email and your voicemail system and bring it all together in Outlook for you, or in the Outlook web application. So basically, you're required to set up a Lync server. The configuration would be to have enterprise voice deployed. So I won't go into details of that because that's a little bit out of scope of what we're trying to understand here today. But you need to deploy Lync Enterprise Voice on premises. With that, the important portions is you need to have your DNS records for a Lync published in the public DNS and have the Lync Edge server in place. Sorry. So that's going to help you communicate with the online services. Right? And always a question when you're deploying Lync on premises that comes up is, do we need a public certificate or not? So if you're deploying Lync Edge to communicate with the online services, mandatory to have public certificate in there. Even otherwise, you do require a public cert, but I know of some deployments that are a little different, not supported, not recommended. All right, so the Edge server is going to act more like a gateway, and you'd have a couple of configurations there on-premise to talk with the Exchange-hosted unified messaging role, which is basically saying, this is my voicemail piece, go talk to it. Right? So next piece is to configure your online services to be able to use the now deployed Lync system or your on-premises telephony system and be able to accept voicemails or calls from the on-premises to the online. So I won't run you through this. This is for your reference. I'll just walk you through the demonstration so we have a good idea of that. So user configuration. Well, let me go back to the portal, close out of these other windows not required right now. All right, so that's done. Now I'm back at the admin console, and I'm going to show you how simple it is to configure unified messaging. A couple of things that you need to keep in mind when you're configuring this whole piece. So let me go to Manage Exchange, because this is an Exchange feature. It's Exchange Unified Messaging. All right, and let's go to Phone and Voice. Now, by default, you're going to have these pieces empty. So on your screen right now, you'll see a couple of configurations showing up, but by default, this is going to be empty. So let me go out, delete these. Okay, and it says you have a gateway in place, so I need to first remove the gateway. Right, that's gone. Then configure unified messaging, delete these. Now the first thing that you're looking at here is, okay, I have a user actually set up with that, so I'm not going to be able to delete them. But anyways, I'm going to set up new pieces. So dial plans is the first piece of configuration that you're going to have to do. Now, if I go back to my portal, let me open up one here, go to users. Let me see, let me take admin 1, go to more, change mailbox settings, scroll down, go to voice and phone features. Now you're going to see unified messaging here it says disabled. right? So I can't actually go out and enable it until I configure unified messaging. Otherwise, you're just going to get an error message that'll tell you to configure, okay? So just a disclaimer, because I have a lot of customers that go here, try to enable unified messaging and come out saying, hey, you know what? We try to do it, but it does not work. So I'm going to go back to unified messaging. Now, dial plans basically tells us as to how is the call going to reach the online services, with what property. So if I click New, give it a name, I'll say dial plan demo. Now, you'll see dial plan URI type. So I have telephone extension, E.164, and SIP URI. I'm going to open a notepad in parallel to this. I've been typing too much Q&A answers. My fingers are slipping. So let me do word wrap. And first one is telephone extension. So this is your basic extension. And if your internal system is configured or your telephone system is configured to just use the extension, which could, if you have a 6-digit extension, is going to look something like, just at random, this is probably my extension for all you know. So it's going to look something like this. And Exchange Unified Messaging needs to understand that it's going to get just this property that it needs to work with and associate with the user. This is one way that your telephone system is going to route calls. Second, and most popularly used, is the E.164. So if I go back to the configuration, click, and it's E.164. If I come here, this is the standard way of routing calls across the globe. So it's going to look something like plus, which is the basic dial functionality. It's going to have a 1. This is the country code. So for the United States, it's just 1. And after that, you have your phone numbers. So say 425 111 111 1. I have 10 digits there, and I have the country code with it. So this is a standard way of dialing across the globe. 90% of the time, you're going to have routing just using E.164. Now, another piece that you want to enable for it to be able to route is the SIP URI. So we've been talking a lot and saying, hey, you know, your SIP URI needs to match, your SIP URI needs to match. Now, when you log in into Lync client, you log in as, for example, my login is AJ Pinto. I'm going to separate that a bit. AJ Pinto at Microsoft.com. So this is basically my SIP URI for me as a user. So this is what it's going to be. And that's where the UPN planning and other details, which Folio is discussing, becomes even more important. So what you want to tell the system is it should be able to pick a call that comes for a SIP URI as well. So if you're doing a PC to PC call, the call identity that you're using is going to be ajpinto at Microsoft.com. For example, if I'm calling Stefan from Lync client, I just pull up his name and say Lync call to him. So let me actually do that. All right, and that's going to be loading in a moment. There we go. All right, and I'm going to say Stefan. And
maybe this helps.
There we are. Perfect. Hi. Right. So we're chatting right now, and if I go out and click the drop down and call, I'm going to have multiple options. So I can call his work number, his mobile device, or just do a Lync call, or leave him a voicemail. Now, different options here. Which URI is it going to use, or which property is going to use for each of these call types? So if I say Lync call, which I'll just run right now, but I'm not going to talk to him because he's just sitting right here. Disconnect it. Now when this Lync call is getting placed, it's going to use Stefan's SIP URI, which is going to be, let me say, it's going to be sssmith@microsoft.com. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's going to try to dial out to that. And so if I'm placing a call from Lync, my unified messaging system needs to understand if it receives a call with the SIP URI property as the destination and the sender or the initiator as well, it needs to accept that and place it to the appropriate voicemail box. Right? So that's important to have here. So if I do a call more like, sorry, I just love to talk with you, man. So, so if I don't have enterprise voice enabled for me, so I have his work numbers, mobile numbers grayed out, or I could just buzz him right now. But if I did, and if I would click on his mobile number or his work number, that's if it's going outside, ideally it's going to take my E.164 and my SIP URI and go out. And for the telephone system that he receives it on, it's either going to be compatible with E.164 if it's his work number or mobile number, and I'll have my SIP URI somewhere in the logs. So again, if this is the way the call is going to be placed for your on-premises telephone system, the unified messaging system needs to be able to understand that it needs to accept a call with this property and be able to route it internally. So I'm going to configure all three for you guys. So I'm going to use dial plan with telephone extensions, dial plan with E.164, and dial plan with SIP URI. Right? So the first one, let's go with telephone extensions. And I'm going to say this has about 4-digit telephone extension. The audio language is United States, and country code is 1. So I don't need to place a plus sign here. That's going to be understood automatically. I'm going to click Save. All right, let me go back. So I have dial plan demo created, extension length 4, and it says URI type telephone extension. So let's create the next one. Say dial plan demo 2. Now I'm going to say E.164. I still need to give it the telephone extensions in all of them so that it understands the dialing habits in the Lync system. So I'm going to say 4 digits and E.164, and I'm going to add the country code. Click Save. Very simple configuration, takes about minutes to complete, a few minutes. Let's say dial plan 3. Again, I need to specify the digits. Dial plan URI. I'm going to click SIP, and I'm going to click 1. All right, click Save. All right, so I'm done configuring the dial plans. I'm good to go. So my unified messaging server is going to be able to use all of these ways of routing calls, or is going to be able to support these different URIs. You can click Refresh, go to IP Gateway. Now, we talked about the Edge server and the session border controller, these two devices. So basically, what your IP Gateway address needs to be is either the Edge server FQDN or the session border controller. Like I said earlier, you need to create a public FQDN and have a public routable IP so that you're going to be able to reach the session border controller that's deployed on-premise. So I'm going to create a new configuration. I'm going to say gateway 1. Now the address needs to be an FQDN, so I'm going to enter that. Say gateway 1 dot on, let's see, which domain name can I use? Well, this is hypothetical, so corp.info, and I need to select a dial plan which will be used for this. Okay, so I'll say dial plan demo and click save. Now, it'll give you a pop-up and say, after you created the UMIP, misconfigure the physical device referred to in the FQDN, forward calls, blah, 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 blah. So basically what we require to do here is go to the session body controller or the edge server, configure that to route calls to the online services. Okay? Mm-hmm. So once you do that, you'll be able to come back to the Exchange Online service and run a get UMIP gateway commandlet. Remember, this is not Lync, this is Exchange, so we have commandlets for that. And you'll be able to get the IP address. So basically, the FQDN needs to resolve to the IP.
Sorry, Jinka, let me ask you a question about those 3 UM dial plans that you configured. Do we require to have all 3 dial plans configured in order to use each one of them, or can we just configure one plan, the URI plan, and then only URI will work?
So, like I was saying, it really depends on how your telephone system on-premise is going to route the call. Right? So there's something called normalizing. So basically, converting the dialed number into a standard format. Right? So as a user, I can go in and just punch a number, ta-da, ta-da. But when the call needs to get placed, it needs to be resolved into a standard format that all telephone systems will understand. So based on how your on-premises PBX does that, you need to configure the respective URIs, supported URIs here.
1, 2, or 3 of them.
Exactly. So default one that you always want to have, especially if you're using a Lync, is the SIP URI. That's a given.
Yep.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
All right. So I'm all set. I'm all configured to receive voicemails now. But what I need to do is enable a user for unified messaging, and I can have that user receive. So I'm going to go back to admin1, that's a user, go to change mailbox settings. Well, let me click back just to make sure that I'm not timed out. And let me pick up a user. I'm going to assign licenses to this guy first. Say save. I'm not going to have any rules assigned to him, just going to assign the location, click save again, go back to that user. There we go. All right, now I just assigned all the licenses. You don't need to do that. You can be selective as to just giving a Lync Online license, all right? I'm going to go into more, and you see the user's getting provisioned at the back end. This is just grayed out. I can't click on either of these. So I need to wait a couple of minutes here, probably refresh my screen in the meanwhile, and allow the scripts at the back end to run, and the users will get provisioned completely for that particular license. So let's try again, demo user 1, more. Now you see Exchange portions of it is provisioned, Lync is still getting provisioned right here. All right, so I'm going to cancel back. I'll refresh the user's piece. The demo user 1. Let's check again. All right, this is taking more time than expected. So let me do this. I have a user that's enabled. I think it's demo user, so let me check. Configure user settings. Yep, there we go. We have demo user enabled for, oh my bad. Change mailbox settings. What was I thinking there? Yeah, let that load. So once we go down, we have phone and voice features. And we have unified messaging. I need to go ahead, click enable. I need to select a mailbox policy. So this is again associated, like you were asking, how is it going to get routed to him? So since I'm assuming this is going to be Lync on the back end, so I'm just going to select the SIP URI. Click next. Okay, I can provide the extension number right here. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or I mistyped, so 6. And you need the PIN to manage your voicemail or log into your voicemail. So I can either select automatic generated PIN, or I can give a specific PIN depending on your choice. And you can say require the user to reset PIN. It's best practice. I'm going to click finish. All right, and my user is up enabled for unified messaging. He's good to go. So let's click save. I'm going to click yes. So my window is closed. I'm going to click save again just to ensure everything's safe for that user. And now what I'm going to do is close out of this little pieces, log out from admin 2, log in using the demo user that I just enabled for unified messaging. And let's have a look at what the pages have to say. So let me close out of this, start a fresh session. And we have the Microsoft Online Console loading. I'm going to change the user ID being used. Let me demo user at so if I'm typing wrong, just shout out, okay? Microsoft.com, and I need to put the domain name, of course. It's avs. Hopefully I remember the password for this because I've set up so many users. Oh, great. So I'm logged in. Consider this guy is not an admin, even though he has admin rights. So he's going to basically log in into Outlook, or rather the home page. This is what it's going to look like. And I'm going to go out and use Outlook. So say Outlook. Now, the user is set up for voicemail at this point. They're going to receive voicemail in their mailbox as long as it's getting routed from on-premises to online. And the piece that we were talking about of auto attendant that the user can actually manage. So just a refresher. So I get a call, I don't answer it. The auto attendant responds saying, "Thank you for calling. Ajinkya is currently not at his desk. Please leave a message after beep and he'll get back to you." So I'm going to try to configure that right now. So let's go to see all options. And what my auto attendant can do. So let's go to phone. Right, so I have voicemail under phone that I can configure. And I have different rules for routing these calls that are going to be available to me. So the first one is new rule. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say if Stefan calls me, okay, I can record a message right here. All right, so if the caller is, say, Stefan, can I have your personal number? I'm just going to put in something here.
555.
55.
555. 12.
Did we hit 10 numbers? I think that's more than that. Or I can select from my contact list for somebody who's calling and click apply. All right, so if the following conditions are met, if the caller is, which is Stefan in this case, and I can set a period. I'm not going to do that right now. And I can also say my calendar is saying busy right now, so I don't want to accept calls, just take voicemails. And since Stefan is so important to me, I'm going to say, let him have special treatment. So have automatic replies turned on. So even though I'm sitting at my desk, I'm going to be busy at that time, say schedule when I'm busy. And if Stefan were to call me at that time, he's just going to get an automatic reply. So Stefan gets up from his desk, says, "Oh, Ajink is there. Call him." Bang. "Thank you for calling. Please leave a voicemail." So, just kidding, but that's the kind of scenario that you can work around, and you can configure your auto attendant to specifically route calls based on how you want to prioritize different calls, your work. So this is some great features. Okay, and in case you want the call to get rerouted, you want to have find me at the following numbers. I can say if the call is not being answered for X number of seconds, call me at, now this is my personal number, so don't try to call that. So 10000000001. Okay? So if I don't answer the call in 25 seconds, call me there and click apply. See, my dialing rules, I need to have 10 numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. See, I don't even remember my personal number. Okay. What's happening? Let's try my other personal number. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0.
Do we need the country code, maybe?
There you go. Okay. I'm not actually I'm not allowed to do that right now.
Right.
Comply with dialing restrictions configured by a voicemail administrator.
Oh, okay.
So for the demo user, I just assigned the SIP policy, SIP dialing policy. So I'm not going to be able to do this. It could be more like say an email address, but I'm not going to be able to do this because of that restriction. So if I were to change it to, say, E.164 dial plan, then I'd be able to do this. Okay? All right, so that's done. I can also transfer calls or simply just leave a voicemail message. And I can record greetings and prompts right here. So I'm going to
all the standard voicemail
do
features.
that. Yep, absolutely. Click Save and Close. And I have my auto attendant for Stefan. So next time Stefan calls me from this particular number, which is his personal number, he's going to hit the voicemail, right? So I can reset my voicemail pin right here, so I don't need to call the admin and say, "Hey, I forgot my pin, can you reset for me?" As long as I remember my login ID and password, I'm good. So I'm going to reset that, or I can reset that, and I can choose my greeting right here. Call me, play or record greetings, blah, blah. And this is the dial plan that I have, SIP URI, so it's going demo user at avs.onmicrosoft.com. Right? So you have voicemail access when you dial into your phone. You have voicemail previews, different number of functions that you can do. But these are the important ones, is if I would put it that way. But again, if you're not from the voice background, or this is like the first time you're having a look at this, I strongly suggest you do the hands-on, do the practice, and then appear for the exams, right?
Yep.
So that's voicemails and unified messaging. Let me go back to mail, minimize this, and let's have a look at the presentation if you have anything that we missed. So let me maximize this once again. All right, so you have call answering rules, we've just covered. This is the screenshot that I've been waiting for. So voicemail preview, right? So you have, this is actually an email screenshot that I've taken. Actually, I've not taken, but it has a little WMV recording with the inbuilt player in your email itself, and it has the voicemail preview that's there, and the entire piece that works. Okay. Now, for unified messaging, again, to be able to control the administrative functions, we have a couple of roles that are defined. This is the same concept of role-based access control that you have on premises. So that carries forward, gets split out, and we have specifics for unified messaging. So we have the mailboxes role, prompts in unified messaging. Each of them have specific features. I'm going to leave this for your reference here. I'm not going to try to read out the slide to you. It's self-explanatory. All right. And when we talk about unified messaging, the conversation is usually incomplete without talking about fax systems. All right. So while talking about fax systems, so the short and sweet story about it is Exchange Online Unified Messaging does not support fax out of the box. Simple, right? Yeah. But all the same, it can interoperate with third-party fax systems. So what does that mean? So if your customer has a fax system that can send the fax in the form of an email, you can use the SMTP relay and relay that email which the fax system is generating to the user's mailbox so that they can read their faxes directly out of mail.
So it's paper to email, basically.
So nowadays a lot of people don't even use paper for that matter, but yes, suppose I'm sending a paper fax and the other side has a digital fax system. Yep. So that's going to just create an email and drop it into my mailbox.
Great.
Okay.
So how difficult is it to set it up?
Difficult. So this is a third-party fax systems. From the Exchange Online side, you don't really have to do anything. You just need to provide the SMTP address of the online services, the SMTP relay piece, and you'll be able to relay right out. But on your screens right now is a couple of partners that provide fax systems that you can deploy and that work under the supportability program with the Exchange Online system.
Great.
All right, so I'm going to go next. Now, I know PowerShell's big with Exchange Online. I have a link for you guys dedicated just for that. Now, this one's not going to talk just about Exchange Unified Messaging. It's going to talk about all of the Exchange PowerShells available for the online services. So you'll find one of the sections says Unified Messaging. That's the one to refer for this particular module. All right, and we've been talking about SBCs, PBXs, IP gateways. Here's a couple of links that you can refer for the supported devices that Stefan and I were talking about earlier. And we have a great blog for unified messaging in Office 365. I'd suggest visit that every now and then. That has some great posts and updates as to what's happening there. All right, so
that concludes the Exchange Online Unified Messaging part. Now, that together with Lync, very, very intense, very deep sessions. Now, this is something that we see a lot with customers, that they want to have this set up, right? So it's really critical in planning this early on. Like we talked about the things in Lync. If you don't do proper planning, then you might have not the right addresses. You might have an on Microsoft.com domain, on the Exchange side, on the Lync side, Microsoft.com or company.com, and it won't match up, and Lync won't work properly. So the planning part is really, really critical, and that's a big emphasis on the exam, right?
Exactly.
That's why we have the certification. What's key for the certification, to enable you to understand all those concepts, know what is involved, and it's so broad. We're not talking about one product, right? We're talking about multiple services that come together in Office 365, being able to plan all of those to work together properly, and then being able to deploy it. And of course, what we discussed yesterday after deployment, being able to administer it. So with that, we ending day 1.
Day 2, actually. So Stefan's a little
Yes, that's day 2.
in the past.
Jinka caught that. Good. So that's day 2, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this was very, very helpful. With closing out on day 2, actually, this should be day 1 and day 2 should covering all the material you need to pass the exam for administering Office 365 7323. Today and tomorrow together, as well as the basis we have built yesterday on day 1, should help you for this exam of 7321, and that is the planning and deploying Office 365 exam. Mm-hmm. So thank you for staying with us this long. I hope you'll get a good night's sleep and be with us tomorrow for day 3.
And for the guys who are already doing the nights, have fun.